As was noted in the introduction for the course, Social 20 is broken down into 4 units of study. Each unit of study focuses on a key issue or question. For the first unit, or for the first related issue, to what extent should nation be the foundation of identity, forms the first issue or question. Now, in order to answer this and to focus study around this issue, we need to understand 2 concepts, nation and identity. And probably, given the fact that identity is a more basic concept, we should start there. So what is identity? Well, basically, identity are those key characteristics or features that people use to identify themselves. In other words, those features that make an individual unique. Can you think of some? Perhaps you could come up with a few. Well, let's take a moment and see if you can come up with 8 specific key characteristics or features that make you who you are, that make you unique. Take a moment and try and do this. Well, if you've done this, if you've tried to come up with key characteristics that you use to identify yourself, probably the first one you came up with is your name. Obviously, your name is a key characteristic, and it's something that really makes you who you are. But are there any other characteristics or features that you had come up with? Perhaps you came up with gender. That's another obvious one. Or perhaps family. Family is an important characteristic that makes up a person's identity. How about likes or dislikes? Everybody seems to have them, and they are elements that make a person unique. Hobbies. Most people engage in hobbies, whether they're individual or collective in nature, and they help people enjoy free time and alleviate stress. How about religion? Now, not all people are religious, not all individuals are a part of a religious group, but those that are, obviously then religion would make up an important key characteristic of that individual's identity. How about ethnicity? Well, Canada's a multicultural country, and we all have a background, and our ethnicities are important elements of our background and therefore of our identity. And how about occupation? Now, you may be working part-time, but you're doing something full-time right now. You're studying. So your occupation is a student, and being a student is an important part of your identity. Let's take this one step further. Let's now take those 8 characteristics, these key features, and let's see if you can break them down so that you can classify them, 4 as being individual and 4 as being group. So take those 8 that we just talked about and try and break them down and separate them into individual and group characteristics. It shouldn't take you very long. Well, you probably had a chance to do this. It's not a very in-depth activity, but it is an important one because it's important that we understand that our key characteristics, those key features that make us who we are both individual and collective in nature. So let's see if you broke these down in somewhat following this manner. Obviously, your name is an individual characteristic. It's a feature. It's individually. You may share it with others, but your first, middle, and last name are definitely your own. Gender, however, is a group characteristic. We have males and females, and so that, being part of a group, makes it a group characteristic. Family, even though there are other members of your family is part of an individual characteristic. Your ethnicity, however, is part of a group characteristic. It's a collective. If you're French Canadian or Italian Canadian or Greek Canadian or German Canadian or whatever, that's part of a group, and so it's a group characteristic. Your likes and your dislikes, those are individual. They're uniquely your own, and so it's an individual feature or characteristic. If you are religious, or if you are a part of a religious group, then obviously it's a group characteristic because there are other individuals who are also a part of that. And of course, your hobbies are individual in nature in that they're your own, but one may argue that they're also a group characteristic in that, depending on the type of activity the hobby is a part of, it may involve others in a group. But for the purposes of our discussion, since it's uniquely your own, we'll say it's an individual characteristic. And of course, occupation, whether it's student, teacher, or whatever, is a group characteristic. So now we see what identity is. We understand that it has a number of elements to it, and that some are individual in nature and some are collective in nature or group. So when we move forward, we're going to look at the next concept, that of nation.